Afternoon, David. How are you today?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Good to be
Brilliant.
back.
Yes. The last time we had a podcast, you are still leading my charts of people listening.
What?
So
Come on. What? How many people was it?
it's over, I think it's nearly 300 people have actually downloaded this, which
Amazing.
doesn't
Yeah.
sound a lot, but in the scale of things, it is really good. I'm really it's funny when I do your interview, when I look at the interview, it's a massive spike over that
That's good, though,
period.
right? Oh, wicked. Yeah, yeah, for
So I'm
sure.
hoping again we're going to get another little spike come along.
I re-listened it again on my journey back to the office today, and it's really funny. Like a whole bunch of stuff that we were saying we were going to do, like we're actually doing now.
Brilliant, brilliant.
It's really exciting actually, and some of the legislation bits that we were waiting for the government to pull the finger out, they're actually happening now, or actually one of them even happened last year. It's like, yeah, it's really good. So yeah,
And so that data I just given you isn't the actual data. It's the podcasting sort of recording data. It's very unknown. So that's just the bits we do know about. There's so much out there that we don't know
no, for
that actually
sure,
gets out.
absolutely.
They reckon the podcasting world still hasn't hit its peak.
Yeah, no,
So,
no, I'm not surprised either. I'm not surprised either. It's
and we've got YouTube now as well, just to let you
well,
know.
oh, do you?
Yeah,
I was wondering when you were going to do that. Actually, that seems to be the buzz one now as well, doesn't it?
yeah.
You end up putting your little shorts on there, like clips of me saying something ridiculous, really out of context, just one little bit.
Well, we could
Yeah,
have had the memorable one, and obviously we cut that out as halfway through the conversation. You had to go and let Amazon in. Your dog was going mad. Then we couldn't quieten the dog down. It just
every
got
conference
crazy,
call
didn't it?
does it, man. It's the beauty of working from home, right? So, Rowan Energy used to pride itself as having like a zero carbon commute for all its workers. Then COVID came, and everyone had a zero carbon commute, and it wasn't special anymore.
Was nothing new, was it?
Oh no, but yeah, so lucky I've got no dogs here today, which is good.
Brilliant.
And yeah, I've just said to you, I've just turned my phone off. You've got me
I've
now.
got you focused. But David, look, obviously we've known each other for years through business and sort of family. We've been to christenings, weddings, and
Yeah,
funerals,
yeah.
sadly. So we've been there. I know a lot about yourself, but for the benefit of our audience, could you give us your background and tell us a little bit about your origin story?
Yeah, sure. So um I come from a technical background. Traditionally, I worked in networks and firewalls for large financial and legal organizations, banks, law firms, insurance companies, big names, Deutsche Bank, Barclays Capital, things like that, where I used to manage projects on their perimeter security, networks and firewalls on their perimeter, and I did that for 4 years. I've ran several businesses along the way, IT companies, and then the consultations, property investment portfolios. I even owned a pub once, actually, a printing press. I've done that, and I've done all kinds of
Wow.
business, all with various different levels of success, in some people's eyes, anyway, mine. And so I've been running Rowan Energy. Came about in about 2018. Um, so the Rowan Energy dream, was to build a blockchain that was very, very low carbon, and suitable for the energy industry as what it was about to become. That was in 2018. It was a kitchen table project, writing code. I'm not very good at writing code, but I wrote this code, with the idea that I would issue blockchain validation servers, so miners, certificates in order to allow them to validate transactions, rather than them using large amounts of energy in order to break codes, of which, how traditional mining works, they kind of like solve puzzles. And the way the old blockchains would work, it was like the more energy you put in, the more reward you could get out. And I wanted to kind of reverse that. My background in blockchain and cryptocurrency came from all the way back in 2014. I built an enterprise level Bitcoin mine in a Regis building in Cambridge. I signed a year's lease with them. They included everything in the lease, and I shoved like 30 servers in there. And after the 12 months, they kicked me out, basically. Well, they told me they were no longer going to provide it with energy. Yeah, we sold the mine. It was that was good fun. And we mined a load of Bitcoin, which is great as well. Yeah, we're not so many words, but said, you've got to leave now. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it's not even just the power in these machines; it's keeping them cool. They produce so much heat
And less noisy, because
noise.
I actually bought one of those miners off you, didn't I?
Didn't you actually? That was,
Yeah.
I forgot that you did that. And
Yeah.
it was like, honestly, like you
I
can
lost a
imagine.
lot of sleep.
Oh my God, you know what? And there's lots of people out there talking about how you could use them to heat your home, but it's such a horrible
Yeah.
dry heat. It's you wake up with a cough.
Yeah.
But there were like 30, 40 businesses in this business center, and right at the beginning, regularly I would blow the electric for the whole building. And it was like constantly I had to bring a new feed into the building just for me. But I had my lease, and as long as I didn't break my lease, I couldn't do anything. Yeah, after when the lease renewal came up, they were like, no, thank you. And I was actually introduced to Bitcoin by my father-in-law, amazingly. For credit where credit is due. It was him that kind of said, have you heard of this magic like internet money that criminals using? And I had him. And actually, it was like the whole kind of like idea of the technology which excited me at first, and the idea that you could transfer money from the UK to the other side of the world, and it would take a matter of minutes, and they would arrive. And whereas at the time, things are a bit better now, but at the time, you send money to India, it took 3 weeks to get there. I could have flown there with the money in my hand and got there.
Exactly.
And it was expensive. And so that the whole kind of like decentralized money thing was interesting to me as well. So I built this blockchain in 2018. I entered it into a competition at Cambridge University. I didn't go to Cambridge University, by the way. I didn't win either. I was like 30 or 40 years older than everyone else there. People, they actually thought I was one of the tutors, the other kids that were in the competition. And so I knew I had no chance of winning. It was there to give, the younger generation a chance. And here I struggling with this idea. But what did come from there, is that there was an opportunity within the energy arena for have traceability of energy within the network. And there's loads of underhandedness and foggy scenarios and people buying energy on a green tariff that isn't really green. And I just thought, there's an opportunity here somehow to be more transparent and have accountability within this industry. And it was hard industry to break into. It was closed doors, old boys club. People didn't like change. From running the business over the last few years, I've gone through the stages that you see where at first people would message me telling me what I was doing was impossible. That was maybe one of the first. Well, you can't do that. It's going to be impossible. You're never going to be able to do that many transactions. And then you go through the people telling me what you're doing is illegal. That's for sure. I went through that stage. And then slowly they start getting interesting. Well, what is it you're doing and how are you doing it? And some pretty big, I'm not going to name drop, but some pretty big, important, powerful men from big, important, powerful businesses, like adding me on LinkedIn and asking me for a call. And sitting here, in the little office in my house, what the hell is going on? But he's starting to be noticed. And that's that's really exciting. But yeah, the origins of it came from sitting at my kitchen table writing code. And now it's like a fully functional working blockchain that is primarily run by residential solar, some business. It's 20 or 30 times quicker than other blockchains that are out there as well, which is amazing. And it's literally just, so we went through a whole process with it of going building it through a beta model, and then this is kind of general release version 1. We've got version 2 coming out at the end of the year, and there's certain applications of which are available to run on a blockchain like this in the energy industry, and those applications come once the infrastructure is in place. So we have a blockchain that does completely are unique to us, which is called proof of generation. And so rather than proof of work, where you use lots of energy, or proof of stake, where you need to hold lots of tokens, you have proof of generation is you must have generated renewable energy for your home miner to be given permission to validate transactions. Now, we took the competition element out. So the more solar you have, the more you can earn, but it's more, you've generated more renewable energy, and what we did was, rather than fix it to a cryptocurrency, we fixed it to fiat, pounds and pence. And so for every kilowatt one of our clients uses, they get 10p. Right. And now we've got customers that have got 3 kilowatts. We've got customers who've got 100 kilowatts on a warehouse. And they are, the average person probably earns about an extra £450 a year, say, from their home setup. And we've just come out of the kind of like first launch where I've spent the last 18 months doing all the sales, and now we're just changing that focus. Now it's just literally in a few weeks of changing the focus. Now my job is changing in a very big way, where now I'm being started initially being approached by, and now I'm approaching distributors in order to sell those products for me. So the obvious way to sell this product is to go via distributors like solar installers. What we fundamentally do is install a small device into the home or the business called a smart miner, which I spoke about on the previous show. It validates the transactions on the network. It actually mints carbon offset certificates based on the energy generation, and it counts that energy generation by the roof, and that's its sole purpose. Solar installers have a history of houses of which they install, and they have solar installations they're doing every day now. One of the aims of this new phase of the business is to fundamentally change that solar industry, I hope. Okay, so this is kind of the thinking behind it, and this is I'm kind of hoping it's going to be mid-September. So we've got a new bit of hardware coming out, and I'll explain that in a minute, but a new bit of hardware coming out, and with that new bit of hardware will come this distributor model. Now, solar installers, and I feel your pain, solar installers, you have to have a continual line of leads to turn into sales to make money. You, for lack of a better comparison, it's like a roofer or a window fitter, for example, which you may put a roof on or fit some windows in a customer's property and then never talk to that customer ever again. And so then you have to find another person that needs windows or another person that needs work on their roof. So what we're trying to do is that when a solar distributor comes to us, and they install a smart miner, not only does their customer have a better return and a shorter payback period, and they put the device in and they get their 10 pence a kilowatt, the solar installer will get 2 pence per kilowatt that the customer for the energy the customer produces. So you get this residual income. And that's going to be like 5 or for the next 5 or 10 years, and that will help solar installation companies not only have a residual income. They can potentially go back to all the 300 installs they've done over the last 10 years or however many it is, and earn an income from those guys going forward. And somebody fondly called it the other day the solar coaster, right? So the solar coaster is we have an industry, and if you look at a long period of time, we've got like 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, and then when the feed-in tariff ended, it was down here, and then slowly building up. That they're going for a little bit of a dip now, which is interesting to see, as the price caps come in and the panic buying of solar has kind of like settled down. You're seeing a few companies of which invested heavily last year in people and vans. I've got maybe a van sat in the office, right? And there's lots of the companies who come in as a solar installer now. Electricians are all gone off and done their MTS certifications, and it means that if they have an edge, as in short payback period times and better income, and a residual income, it kind of smooths those rolls of that solar coaster, and that's what we're trying to achieve. And it's refreshing dealing with solar installation companies because they just get it. Right. I mean, I've had 3 conversations this morning already, and some really big names of which are committing to large orders come the rollout of this new bit of hardware.
And does it matter the size of the installation? Can it be?
the only limit of the installation size, well, it depends. Okay, so we get our customers to sign a terms of service. That terms of service states that they don't belong to any other carbon scheme. So for us, it's really important that we can flog the certificates. And the big no in carbon offsetting is double counting, right?
Yeah.
So if they're already declaring that carbon somewhere, they can't join the scheme. The other limitation is, you can imagine when we sign on someone new, we have to grow the other part of our business as well. And so we have one particular installer that has, I think, 6 or 7 PPA customers, so PPA, powered purchase agreement, where the tenant in the warehouse buys the energy from the owner of the solar, at 25p a kilowatt or whatever. That guy has these 5 or 6 warehouses with 100 kilowatts. And whereas I am doing, when he says he wants to sign them all up, I'm doing a jig. The rest of the team are like, yeah, we need to grow slowly, like to make sure that we don't trip over our own shoelaces, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the only thing. But I mean, we've got, I signed a 100 kilowatt deal yesterday, actually, on a Sunday, as per usual. But that'll be, we'll take that one on, and then we'll allow the business to grow, and then we'll take the next one and allow the business to grow. So the only kind of limitation is that the large solar farms in general are all already claiming the carbon certificates, either in the form of REGOs or ROCs, if they're back in the olden days, like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
It feels energy, doesn't it? Or they're already part of another carbon scheme. We have a large for us solar farm, of which they're just on the feed-in tariff, and it's hundreds of kilowatts. And they actually signed up a small portion of that and are growing it, and that's perfectly fine. So on the feed-in tariff, there's no carbon counted. It's just the way it is. And he's actually put an application in for a 1.5 megawatt farm in another field, and he's come to us going, I'm just going to put it into the price. So the way the pricing works for us is that we actually charge an onboarding fee for the person to join, and that is dependent on their kilowatt peak generation capacity. And so a residential customer won't pay the same as a 100 kilowatt warehouse or business, but the payback period is generally the same. Usually you'll get your money back via rewards in like 1, maybe 2 years, depending on the system size. But generally,
and what are the rewards?
So Roam rewards are paid. So they actually customers all earn reward points.
Yeah.
And those reward points are equivalent to pounds and pence. So the idea is that we wouldn't really have to rebuild the platform if we wanted to put that up. The price of carbon has tripled in the last 3 years, and we're expecting it to triple again in the next couple of years. Government's handing out carbon targets for businesses. There'll be fines for non-compliance, and then you've got 3 choices, right? You pay the fine, of which pours money into a melting pot and goes towards pizza parties or something, or you offset, which some people believe offsetting isn't a genuine thing towards a carbon journey, but actually, if you're investing in a project of which is, for us, it's encouraging the adoption of rooftop solar, then or whether it's planting trees or you are on that financing on that journey, or the third thing is actually you change your business's ways, and this one you can't do overnight. And so as the demand for carbon comes up, then we're expecting it to triple again. I think the Financial Times says it's going to be like a 3,000% rise or something is what they're expecting. And so at some point, I would like to be able to turn around to all of my customers and go, yeah, we're putting it up to 12 pence or 15 pence or something like that. And we do review it from time to time, for sure.
I remember when we spoke last time, they were going to get like a token whereby they could use that token to go and charge their car down the road. But is that changed in any way, or is they're going to use that money to go and charge their car now?
Well, we tested the market. And the market wasn't ready for like tokenization.
Yeah,
it was a really high amount, maybe 20% of our customers joined us because they're into blockchain. or as well. They're into renewable energy. They're like,
Yeah.
are we going to get a token? And I'm like, well, at the moment you don't, because the reality is the other 80 or 82% of our customers, the 77-year-old lady with solar doesn't want to hear she's getting a cryptocurrency. She doesn't even want to hear the word. Wouldn't even know what it is if you said it to her.
No.
And so we need to prepare that market. And I think we have the upgrade ready, and we haven't pushed the button where when they withdraw, they can get an option of what they get. But the world isn't quite ready. Things are changing, and I must say that almost nearly every distributor that we speak to, and I've been speaking to lots over the last few weeks, are all understanding of blockchain. And so I think, and they have the concerns that I've already been through, which is like, oh, how am I going to sell this to my customers? And I'm like, no, everyone gets paid in pounds and pence. The crypto side of the business is purely there because our carbon offset certificates are on our blockchain, and our blockchain requires validation, and which is transactions to be validated, and this is what this smart mine is for.
Yeah.
It's our carbon offsets are being. So I'm quite fortunate to be part of a think tank which advises the government on what they're calling the Internet of Energy, the next form of it. And through that, I became acquaintances with an organisation called the BCI, which is the Blockchain and Carbon Institute. And we are in conversations. It's very early days, but we would like them to use our blockchain for the template for all carbon offsets in the UK. All right. And so our carbon offsets were able to build into the certificates, like program into them the trust that's required. Whereas on our certificates, you can see all the way back to the source and the serial number of the machine, of which counted the energy, the location where that energy is, and it's time stamped, obviously.
Yeah.
You can, once somebody offsets their carbon, you can't transfer that certificate again. So, like I mentioned earlier, a big no-no in the carbon industry is carbon offsetting, and is double counting, excuse me.
Yeah.
And so if I offset my carbon and gave you a certificate, and you offset your carbon, and you gave it to your wife and she offset her carbon, that's that is an issue that is amazingly an issue within the carbon industry. Is this massive amounts of fraud.
Yeah.
So we're able to build into the blockchain, because it's immutable, nothing can be changed. And once it lands in a wallet, which is for carbon offset, it can't be moved again. And also it expires. So one of the other things is you can't be claiming carbon back from 10 years ago when you saved. It's got a year's shelf life, and we're building that into it as well. I mean, so I've got nothing against farmers who grow mangrove trees, by the way, in South America, but I use it a lot in my examples. That guy really doesn't know how much carbon he's saving. He wouldn't, and it's a fair assumption to say that along that process somewhere, somebody makes that up.
Yeah.
And so with ours, it's really quantifiable at a certain time, at a certain place. 1 kilowatt hour of renewable energy on a roof is about 230 grams of carbon. It's about, when we've had this conversation when we first spoke, it was like 400. So things are going in the right direction, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's really quantifiable. When you've got a mangrove tree, trees grow. It's within their first 5 or 10 years of growth, and they absorb the most amount of carbon. And so, for this guy, so mangrove tree farms in South America are, for someone in the UK, it's unfathomable how big they are. It's like hectares and hectares and hectares of swampland, and of which the farmers can't believe his luck that this land that he has, of which he can't farm or grow anything on, is suddenly worth money to him. And so someone's come along and carved it all up. And I went through a process with an investor who had an interest in a mangrove tree farm in South America. This is how I know so much about it. And he wanted to tokenize it. So you bought the token, and that was your offset. And actually, with a mangrove tree farm, it does continually take carbon out of the atmosphere. So you can, after the first year, move it on to somebody else, and they can offset that same. So it's more like tokenizing the tree rather than the carbon, I guess.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, no, we really believe that our carbon offsets will be worth more money than the average ones in the UK as well, because of this system we're building. And especially if the Blockchain and Climate Institute comes on board fully with us, it will be insistent that everybody in the UK will use our infrastructure for their certificates, which is really exciting. It's not a bit terrifying, but really exciting.
One thing that worries me is, I get it. Well, no, I get probably about 75% of it.
Mm.
You get 120% of it because you're in it, you live in it. There's a lot of people out there that don't get it. Where's your challenges? How are you going to educate all of these people, or do they need to be educated?
It is a real it's a question I ask myself every day. So when I'm doing face-to-face sales, so I mean, when you're talking about carbon offsetting, educating people is a challenge, and they have an opinion already. And when I'm talking to potential customers on the phone, there's one guy in particular, I remember the conversation where he was like, "You're doing carbon offsetting? That's just a scam. That doesn't help anything. That's going to help anything." And now I had a long conversation about how actually it's a stepping stone towards helping, and I explained everything about what we were doing and why I thought ours was different, and how it's helping the UK with net zero, not a wind farm in the Philippines, for example.
Yeah.
And at the end of the conversation, he went, "Oh yeah, I totally get it now. Actually, what you're doing is quite a good thing. I'm still not going to buy your product," he said. And so that wasn't even the reason why he didn't want it.
Yeah.
I face these every day. So there's a book, and I wish I could remember who it was by, called Crossing the Chasm. Right. So this is where you bring out a new technology and you're doing something new, and you have a whole bunch of early adopters, of which for me are either renewable energy enthusiasts. So they have solar, electric car, heat pump, everything, right? And they want the next bit of gadgetly kit. Those are great customers for me. Or people that are into blockchain. They happen to have solar. Those are really good customers for me as well. But then the rest of the population, who only ever read about blockchain in the Daily Mail or something, trying to get them to accept what we're doing is a real challenge. And that's why we completely removed. I mean, there are actually two separate businesses now. We've got our blockchain side of our business, and we've got the energy side of our business.
Yeah.
For that very reason, is that our end clients don't need to worry about blockchain. Is that we also run Oracle databases, but we don't go around telling our customers on the phone, we've got Oracle databases. It's just a bit of infrastructure kit that we use.
Yeah.
In the carbon offsetting world, if you're from that world, they understand that they need blockchain, and they're waiting for a good solution. There are a few companies out there that are doing a few good things. None of them are actually none of them are really, I don't think, actually have produced anything yet, but they're out. They've got really, really good ways. I mean, so it's really funny. Like, there are other carbon blockchain businesses, of which have got 60 million quid's worth of funding, and then there's me and my team. We're all sitting in spare rooms around the country, and we're suddenly we monitor like 1.5 megawatts of solar now, and it's really exciting to compare yourself to these other players. And some of them are using blockchains like public chains as well, right? So you got to understand, people's meter IDs are classed as private information, right? So you can't put, for GDPR reasons, you can't put them on a blockchain. Now we have done, and I think I explained it in our last call, like where we encryption, but you can't use a public chain. You can't put people's information stored on machines in all over the world, and it's like people have the right to be deleted if they want off your system. And these guys, as much as I can't take away their technical ability, some of their projects are amazing. They're going to become unstuck with that. You can't delete things off a blockchain because the blockchain doesn't run anymore. But yeah, crossing that chasm is my daily challenge.
So by the sounds of it, you've created two versions of this as such. You've got the full-on Bitcoin side of the business, and then you've got more of a user side. Is the user side more plug and play? Is that where we're heading towards this, where I can buy this product, not have to worry about it because it's just going to be plugged in and off it go doing its thing?
So it's fundamentally that's fundamentally how it works. We've made it user.
I know I've really simplified it there.
No. So installing it takes about an hour,
right?
And it's non-intrusive. You don't need to turn your power off. Well, so the current version runs off a plug socket. So if they need to put a plug socket in, they turn the power off. But it's not going to interrupt your service. They have to cut the wires your solar installer put in or anything. It's really, really non-intrusive, and we did that on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But once it's in 95% of the cases, they never even look at it ever again. And if, for example, and it runs on people's Wi-Fi rather than cellular. A lot of smart meters are cellular, but we run on Wi-Fi. If they change their Wi-Fi provider, the box goes into an access point mode, and you connect to it on your phone, put your new Wi-Fi details in, and off it goes again, and it carries on going. If you have a power outage, it turns off. Obviously, there's no power, and then when the power comes on, it turns back on again. And so the idea is that you don't need to be this like computer enthusiast. It's just another bit of kit that sits under your stairs, of which I did. Because we did the beta launch. I think when you last spoke, we were just about to do this beta launch, and we did it. Yeah. We went out, and we via a distribution partner, we sold like 50 machines, and we went out, and then they were like on the beta version, and they didn't have all this functionality that we needed, and so I needed to go and upgrade them, and it was me that went and did it. So I took it as an opportunity to go meet all my customers, and I drove around the country and upgraded all of these smart miners to be the latest version, and you would literally arrange the viewing, and people would go, "Oh, I don't know where it is. I don't know where it is," and like you go and hunt for it. And like, there's pictures of me all over the internet, like crawling in people's loft space, or under the stairs, pulling things out on the stairs. Oh, there it is down there. Look, and so it's really because they're only small as well. It's some people didn't even know where they were.
Amazing. So, where do you think this is going now? The chasm. Are you close to getting across the other side of this chasm?
Yes, eventually we are making it. So,
and are you building a bridge across it, or are you going to do zip wire across it? What's the plan?
So we need to expand rapidly. That's that. I mean, right? We've done all the testing we need to do now. Distribution partners are excited. They've got a product of which, so when someone's looking for solar, they might have got a quote from somebody and then got it done. Now they're going online, and they're getting 5 or 6 quotes. So they need something that stands them out from the others. I mean, we've taken on 10 new distributors. I think officially it's about 8, but there's more in the pipeline, even more than 10. Yeah. They've committed to orders of like 1,200 units a month between them. Now that's 1,200 people with solar going in a month, of which have got higher returns and better payback period. The other solar installation companies are going to want to do that as well. Yeah. The whole point of this is, remember back from the previous interview, is that we want people to buy and sell their energy between themselves. We had a very brief conversation before this call where I want people to take responsibility for their generation of energy and their consumption of their energy. Change their habits. Get solar in, but don't put the dishwasher on at night. Just wait and put it on in the morning. Simple things like that. I was telling you about an Amazon FBA warehouse where the guy's got 100 kilowatts of solar on his roof. He's on a PPA from his landlord, power purchase agreement from his landlord, and he pays, from what he buys from the grid is like 65p, and what he buys from his landlord from the solar is 25p. And he's got like little mechanical cleaning carts that go around the warehouse and clean, and he's got forklift trucks, and they all charge at night. And when I said to him, you charge it at night, like when the sun's down, and you could see his eyes like, oh, I never thought of that. Yeah. And it was like, his staff don't start till 8:30 or 8 o'clock. And at this time of year, you've got 4 hours of charging to get in them when the sun's up, right?
Yeah.
And so, but there's a law that's going through Parliament at the moment, a bill. It's not a law, is it? They're bills. And that bill's called the Local Energy Bill. The Local Energy Bill will enable smaller local generators to sell their energy directly to their community. So what that means is that we are already quite luckily in the right position in order to facilitate those trades. And I've been bleating on about this for years, but it was, where Airbnb made anyone a hotel, Rowan Energy is going to make anyone an energy company. And we won't need to be an energy company ourselves because we're just facilitating those trades. Yeah. The law doesn't state what local community means either. And so there's an option for us to build almost like a social network but for energy, so the energy network or something we're going to call it, I don't know. And where you have consumers, of which are offsetting their carbon with us, amazing, and buying their energy from prosumers that are on the network. We can have car chargers linked into the network as well as the cars. So we have a product called an EV miner, which is same as a smart miner, but goes into an electric vehicle.
Right.
I've been about that for years, right? It's still in bloody development. But it's all about timing as well, right? So
Yeah.
and what that will do is pay you for every mile you drive, which is going to be exciting, right? But that will also link into the same site. And so people are going to come to our site to check the generation, check their energy bills, check their PPA if they've got a landlord that's selling their energy to their tenant, for example. It's all going to be on the same site, and that's what we want to build. And so the next phase of that is our distribution partners that are going to be selling thousands of devices a month, and all those devices will come into our platform. And these are people that log in every day and they check their rewards, they withdraw their rewards if they want, and they check their generation, they check their car charge, they check their and maybe it'll be a place to go and get your quote for solar. Or if you want to, I mean, I should only imagine if you've got, I mean, we're talking to a car leasing company. They've got 30,000 cars on the road in the UK. At the moment, 9,000 are electric, and their aim is by 2032, I think they said, or was it 2030 maybe, or the whole fleet will be electric. And we're talking to them about having an EV miner in every single one. Now, if you've got a platform that's got 50,000 electric vehicles on it, insurance companies are going to pay a lot of money to advertise to those people. And so this is the monster platform we're trying to build. And like Rowan Rewards is just that first application, the hook to get people signed up and on board. We get a lot of our distributors say, can they just automatically get their rewards every month like a bill? And we're like, no, we want them to log in. We want them to log in and use it and get those page impressions up. And the more we can give them, I mean, so even right now, we're able to alert our customers if their smart miner stops responding, for example. If we lose sight of the smart miner, it drops off the network, they get a message. It's a system we got called MCM, of which it would laugh if I told you what that stood for. When we first built it, our CTO would check manually, and his name's Martin, and so the MCM system was Martin checks manually, which we thought was quite funny. It's automated now, but that's what we did at first. And then if it is calling back but it's reporting zero, that could be an inverter that's gone pop, or another problem within the solar. We're going to have enough data soon that we can turn around and go, your 5 kilowatt system is producing 30% less than other 5 kilowatts in your part of the country, which means that maybe one of the arrays on your inverter is gone. And so we're going to be able to give monitoring on there, of which then gives the solar companies an opportunity to sell a monitoring maintenance package, which is another residual income for them, right? But all of this will be in the same dashboard, the same place. You've got conscious consumers, and you've got conscious prosumers all in the same place, and that's what the aim is. We're really close, but
some of this theme of what you're talking about here is that, so for instance, EV cars are very intelligent, but they're not sharing that knowledge between, say, BMW and Mercedes.
Isn't that always the way with car companies?
Yes.
You know what, as well. So
but you're going to be coming in between all of that, and you're going to start the collaboration. You're going to start to unfold all that, aren't you?
The EV miner as well makes the dumb electric vehicle a bit smarter. So I mean, I know that some of the more recent ones are amazing, right? But so if you've got a really recent electric vehicle, you can turn your aircon on before you get in it in the summer to keep it cool, or you can remotely look at your app and see how much it's charged, for example. And the EV miner gives that functionality to the very first Leaf, for example. It allows you to turn the aircon on via the own energy app, and so suddenly all these electric vehicles have all got this new functionality. But there was an interesting interview with I think he was the CEO of Ford, talking about Tesla cars, about how Ford just used to buy all their technology from the cheapest supplier, and none of the electronics would talk to each other, and because Tesla wrote all that software themselves, and they're so far ahead of these other car manufacturers who now, I mean, the car doesn't talk to itself, let alone talk to other cars. but that's coming. There are some really cool startups that I've had the pleasure of talking to recently, of whom are working on that kind of like interconnection. So where I know the think tank I belong is the Internet of Energy. Maybe there's like the Internet of EVs, right?
Yeah.
Where all the cars are always talking to each other.
Yeah.
Um,
This is where AV is going to come from, because then AV can tell where the other, that's automated vehicle
oh
rather
yeah,
than
yeah, for
EV.
sure. Yeah, okay. I was like
So
AV, audio visual. No, okay,
no,
yeah,
AV. And
yeah.
so for instance, then if that EV car knew where the other EV car was coming up to that same T junction or whatever, it will then decide, I need to slow down, I need to speed up. It will start to learn, and then all that data will become one. We'll all speak the same language, won't we?
Exactly. And it's not even to do with a collision prevention, right? It's to do with I've been down that junction and it is chock a block. Take a different.
Exactly. Yeah, there's loads of different information to come out.
That
But
is,
also,
and then when you've got traffic flows that are flowing all in unison, one, yeah, it's really going to change society. Like,
yeah. And then you plug your car in to your EV charger. This is
yeah.
someone taught me about this. Must have been about 5 years ago. You're going to pull up to an EV charger, plug it in, and it's going to say exactly where you've been. And it's going to give you information about everything, where you shop. You know, Google and all that will all be linked up, and it'll be able to tell you everything about yourself. I know it's a bit frightening, but how powerful is that?
So yeah, I mean, there's privacy issues, right?
Yeah, yeah.
God, you want your wife to know everywhere you're driven? No, I'm joking. But it's like, don't plug the EV in, darling. Oh, I'll do it. It's fine. No, but absolutely. And so there was an EV charge point of which was going to be free, and gave you advertising on a screen of which was relevant to you, and it learned that from your driving habits.
It's going to teach integrity, David. That's what we've got to think of it.
Yes, it will. Yeah,
It's going to teach us to be more integrity, have that integrity in our
more
lifestyle.
integrity. Yeah, for sure, absolutely. But that's just like, it's like one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah,
It's when you manage to get all these bits of the puzzle to fit together, and suddenly you've got like the next generation of human being.
I was talking to someone the other day, and I said, "Can you remember when we used to talk about the year 2000? I'm
Yes.
59. Yeah, year
All right.
2000. We're going to be able to talk with our watch and video call with watches and things. Oh, shut up! That's a load of rubbish. We've gone past that now.
We have, haven't we?
The stuff we're talking about now and laughing about 10 years time is going to be the norm.
It's really funny as well, right? Because when we spoke about the future, like the year 2000 was the one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But you never really considered. I mean, we're only kids or whatever, but
Yeah.
be involved for this shit to happen as well, right?
Yeah.
You can stream a HD movie on your phone on the train on the way to work.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that long ago. I mean, the house that I live in, when I first moved in, I mean, I was originally living in London, right? And I had fibre in London. When I moved into this, I'm like, what I consider to be out in the country. It's not really, but for a Londoner it was.
Yeah.
I couldn't even stream a YouTube video.
No.
Couldn't believe that people had internet like this. I was like, how am I going to work? And it took about 7 or 8 years to catch up.
Yeah.
But now that infrastructure's in place,
and now look, I've got this. I can do it. Yeah. I have that in my pocket. I can do it.
Yep.
Everywhere I can go. It's crazy.
So when I travel around the country visiting customers, I do it in a camper van, right? I know this sounds ridiculous, but I prefer to be able to stop and move on every single day in my camper. And I work from wherever I am, and I get 5G internet in my camper, and I don't even think about bandwidth in my camper.
Yeah. So David, it's been an amazing journey since we've last done the. I'm going to put these both together actually, and I'm going to compare, and it'll be really good.
No,
I'm going to do a timeline on it. So, David, is there anything? And I asked you this question last time, and your business has changed radically, but the podcast hasn't. We're still doing the same routine. So, is there anything you can give back to our audience today from your sort of learning from the last podcast?
I think it's definitely right. It's definitely got to be. It's not all about producing your own green energy, right? People are rushing to get solar, right? It's about consuming less. Everything's around consumption. It's like consuming less or consuming at the right time. And it is like what I said, put the washing machine on in the morning, put the dishwasher on in the morning. You don't need to have. It's almost like, I tell you what, when earlier or towards the end of COVID, maybe was it when there was a bit of a food shortage in the
towards the beginning, wasn't it?
And one of the newspapers said 30% less food on the shelves. And one of my friends said, to be fair, most people could consume 30% less food and they'd be all right, though, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
And it's that. It's like not just about generating energy. It's brilliant to have solar and take responsibility for the generation of your own energy, but it's all about your consumption as well. It's all about it. And like, this is what you do, right? Day in, day out, you do these businesses. We spoke about a hotelier friend of mine whose bills are, I know a pub, she only opens now for bookings because she cannot afford the electricity bill because they haven't got a price cap. 60
some of the bills we've been seeing is 450% increase. You cannot justify, you can't keep your business going on that, can you?
No. Well, and also, belts are tightened at the other end, the customer walking in, and that you can't split that amongst your customers to help you out.
And also, everything they buy, even an egg or a loaf of bread, it's all gone up. Everything's gone up.
It has all gone up.
It's a big challenge. I was with a restaurant owner today, and he's now worried about signing a 5-year deal on his energy.
Don't do it. I know. Did you say
no? We said do it. It's a flex. It's going to be a flex.
Yeah.
So it's going to be going down. That's the only reason why we're saying he needs to do it, because it's a flex contract. He can lock in when he wants to lock in, but we're saying don't lock in.
Yeah.
It's a softening market now. So this is what you need to be doing.
So the reason I would suggest you would lock in would be that you have a set energy bill of which you can then do a 5-year plan on, right?
Exactly. You got the certainty going forward.
I've spoken
but
to,
not at the moment.
No, I've spoken to a guy who runs a warehouse in Chesterfield, and he locked in at like 72 pence.
Yeah.
And he has to pay to get out of that deal, right? It's a bit like when you buy your phone contract out.
Well, you can't really get out of them, can you?
Can't get out of them, and he's stuck.
So this guy we was talking to today, he was on £1.15 a unit kilowatt hour. He's now going to go into 42p, and it's softening. So
really cool, right? Oh my God, amazing.
So he's very happy. But he's in the back of the mind. Do I lock in? Should I lock in? No. Just relax. You've got to. I said, when you opened this restaurant, and that first day you opened it, say one person walked into the restaurant.
Yeah.
The next day, 2 people. What did you think then? Oh, I'm going to close the restaurant. No, you don't think that, do you? You've got to hold your mantle, because you've got to believe in that business.
Entrepreneur, right? It's like
exactly.
It's supposed to be bloody hard.
Yeah,
and
it's not easy.
I've had days, especially in the last 6 months, when it's like, I've sat with him. A friend of mine, he owns a really, really successful software company. I sat there having a coffee with him, going, I never thought it was going to be this hard. It's supposed to be this hard. Being on toast and sleeping on the floor of the office is what it's all about. Otherwise, everyone would do it.
Exactly.
Getting through it, right? It's getting through it. And that is like, entrepreneurship is bloody graft. And I'm sure the restaurant owner, one person, one cover, he's probably had nights, right, when no one's come in.
Of course, yes.
No one's come in. Everyone's like cleaning, right? Yeah, absolutely. And it's about riding the solar coaster.
Exactly. I love that. I might use that. So, David, I really appreciate. It's great catching up with you.
Yeah, really good to talk to you again.
And please, you and your family stay safe in these times.